Welcome to the Founders Code, the most authentic podcast for startup founders. I'm Shamil, founder at Fluid Labs, and here's the question that keeps me up at night. Why do we as founders willingly walk into chaos? The stress, the self-doubt, the endless decisions, and still we keep jumping back into the game. If you've ever asked yourself why, or just want to hear what it's really like behind those polished LinkedIn posts, you've come to the right place. This is a space for real, vulnerable, and honest conversations with founders who've been through the fire and are still climbing. Let's get into it. Today's guest turned a failed startup into a spark for something much, much bigger. Her path led to Brunch, a platform that now powers deep linking and mobile growth of thousands of top-ups around the world. She hosted a podcast, How I Grew This, taught growth marketing at Stanford. And now she's back at it again, building Upside, helping B2B teams understand what really drives their revenue. Please welcome Mada Seghete.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show, Mada. Can we start off with talking a little bit about what you do currently at Upside and why is it important for you?
Yeah, so at Upside, we're solving revenue intelligence for B2B brands. So helping them understand what really drove the large deal with a giant buying group and that took over a year to close. What were the things that really mattered and how should do more of it to get more revenue? And what are the things that actually don't work well and you should cut to improve your revenue efficiency? And, why am I doing this? At Branch, I was the founder, but I was also the head of marketing. And we were trying a lot of different things and it was really hard to know what matters. And I think at the core of why this is important is really the belief that when people know the value of their work, they work better and they have a sense of purpose. And I think in B2B go-to-market, it's just really hard. I mean, maybe the AE kind of knows because they're so close to the deal. But the marketing team always has this, like, they work on all these things and people are always like feeling that they're not doing enough, that they're not doing a good job. The CMO for a B2B has the shortest tenure of all the execs in a company. And I do care about efficiency and I do want founders to do things well. But I think the deeper why for me is I want people to get value and credit for the work that they do. And I want them to know what works. And I want them to work the things that make a difference and not like waste their time. So they can like go home earlier and spend time with their families because they are more efficient with their time.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem because I think every founder is struggling with measuring the real impact of marketing. Well, except for the paid ads, obviously, like paid ads, you can see the metrics straight away. But
well, can you
else,
in B2B? How would you?
Oh, I was thinking about B2C. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, like in B2B, if you do an ad, how do you know that it worked, right? Like you might be like the only way you do it right now is if that person is signing up and they become a lead. But let's say, they become a lead and they don't take the meeting now, but they take a meeting, but they end up coming to your like website a month later and they come as an inbound. Do you know really that the ad was what drove them?
Yeah, all the praise will go to the sales manager just picking up that call, I guess.
And you can say it's inbound. And so like, I actually think we don't do a good job measuring the effective of ads in B2B, especially with large deals. And I think ads in some cases perform much better than people expect. And in some cases perform much worse because depending on how they measure it.
Let's go back to the early days. Let's talk about Mada in Romania. Probably thinking about her engineering degree. How did that come about?
I was very good at math. And when I applied to the States, I didn't really have money or I just like applied to 25 schools. And I wanted to, have the highest chance of getting in. And it felt like trying to apply in engineering was going to be the right call. So, I wish the answer was like, oh my God, I was so passionate about building things. But if I'm being honest, the answer is really like, I just thought that this would be the best way for me to get in. And because I was good at math, I would be a good engineer. My parents had engineering degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was young and I wasn't used to this idea of like, I should really figure out what I want to do with my life. I didn't feel I had that luxury. So when I got to Cornell, I had a full scholarship and I didn't quite understand that actually I could choose any major I wanted. And I ended up doing engineering because I said that in my application. I thought that was the only option. And I ended up studying computer engineering. I probably should have, like, if I look back, I wish I had more agency and I thought more about what I really wanted to do with my life and what was the thing that like made me made me passionate. And I don't know if it would have been engineering. I think, if we look back, I think having a very technical engineering degree really helped me get to where I am today. But, we'll never know what the path would have been had I chosen
What do
something
you
more
think?
creative.
What do you think you would have chosen?
Probably architecture. Yeah. I would be a
And
very different person today if I had chosen that.
I relate a lot to architect because my sister is an architect in Paris. Yeah, also a crazy ride. Was it normal for like people in your school, uni, like probably school, just be like, oh yeah, we'll probably go to the US? Because I grew up in Ukraine. The idea of heading off studying somewhere abroad was like nobody really talked about that. Like nobody even considered that as their path. Was it normal in your circles?
Um, wasn't so my mom read like article when I was, I think, in middle school that if you were good, if you could actually apply to these schools in US. I don't know, she read something in the newspaper and I think she had this like dream that I would apply. And we moved to Bucharest and I was very good at math. So I used to like, I had a lot of prizes at like regional competitions. I made it to the nationals, which in Romania is a big deal because math is like the most desired and it's like the most prestigious type of Olympiad you can go to. And she had this feeling that I could like apply and started looking into it. And when I moved to Bucharest, she went to the best high school and she was like kind of badass. And she was like, Bucharest is the capital. And I was coming from a very small town. And she went to the principal and was like, my daughter is amazing. She needs to be put in the best class. And he's like, well, my son is the same age and he's in the best class. I'm going to put her in that. So somehow I ended up in like one of the best possible like classes of like 30 people in the country. So in my class, there were other people who applied. I wasn't the only one. So there were a small group of us who would go and like learn about SATs. And so there was another girl in my class who ended up coming to the States. And so it wasn't like unheard of, but it wasn't like everyone was doing it either.
What was different about these people in your class? Were they a lot more ambitious, capable than others?
No, I mean, it was just a normal class. It's just like smart people and people were just smart. There wasn't like in Romania, it's not really based on, you kind of get put in a class in high school like randomly, but nothing is truly random. And this was like a good high school. I don't know if there was something like different. It was just like people were ambitious. They were like from more affluent backgrounds, which I wasn't. So I always felt like I wasn't, I didn't belong. But there was just the beginning of a long line of being in environments where I always felt like I didn't like quite live up to the environment. So eventually I learned to adapt to that. But I think it's as you said, it's hard when you grew up in an environment where, I didn't know if we're going to have food to then like go and be with people who grew up with a lot, meaning like they just had a very different mindset. Like they had a very abundant mindset. And I think when you grew up in scarcity, it's hard to shift the mindset.
Did you ever had an issue with trying to feel like you belong? Like you
I
were
mean, all
always
the
like an
time, right?
imposter.
Like I feel like this idea of belonging, and I think like the idea of belonging is so much. It's not really part of it is the group, and does the group make you feel like you belong? And part of it is all internal. If you can increase your self-esteem and you choose to like feel like you belong, then I think the group is more likely to accept you. So I did not feel like I belong in a lot of different groups, including like my business school class at Stanford and many like the engineering degree undergrad at Cornell. But like I started learning to build groups myself, and I think I am a community builder, and I build a lot of community. And part of the reason I build community, I think, is because deep down there's this feeling that if I build a community, I will automatically belong in it. And it's just interesting. I think we're all driven by different things. I think that's a big driver for me. But I think I am also working on my own, like, internal demons. So I feel I belong in any. There are people who will go into any room and they will feel that they belong and then they will belong. So
Did you feel lonely at those times?
yeah, but not recently. I built so much amazing community around me and I don't feel lonely anymore. Um, and I think like I don't think I ever felt truly lonely because I always found ways to connect with different people in community. So even if I felt that there wasn't a feeling of belonging in the broader community, I always was able to build strong connections with people. So yeah, loneliness has never really been a big problem.
Were a lot of female software engineers in Stanford and Cornell?
There weren't a lot of software engineers at Cornell, or I mean, I was not actually a software engineer. I was doing processor design and electrical engineer. I think there were probably like 10% or 15% women in our major, but it was totally okay. I like grew up being a minority in a lot of ways, so I adapted. At business school, there were a lot more women because I didn't study engineering at Stanford. I studied business, and um, Stanford does have, I think, our class at. I mean, it wasn't 50%, but it was a big number. Yeah.
What was the dream job for everyone in the business class? Was everyone trying to get into Bain Company, McKinsey?
No, the dream job was to start your own company. I had the dream job. Everyone wanted to like Stanford is very entrepreneurial, and um, it's more like going into Bain and McKinsey is the I just need to do this for a while to make stable money. The dream job was either becoming a VC or starting a company.
So you work at one of those like huge bank consultants just to make the ends meet until you have enough saved to start the company.
Um, I mean, some people do that. I obviously didn't. I think a lot of people went to business school because they were consultants before, and when you are a consultant and you go to business school, usually the firm pays for your business school. Do you have to go back for a few years? So a lot of people did that um, because, like, it's a very financially advantageous way of like business school is very expensive.
Yeah.
I'm still paying my loans. I mean, I should pay them off, but that's just like an easy way to you know go to business school. And also you have a job after, you don't have to worry about jobs. So like those people I think had way more fun in business school than I did trying to like start a company. Yeah.
In those moments, because I remember my own experiences when there were people going off to stable jobs, planning their future easily, and me trying to start these companies, I would always feel a little jealous of how easy they seem to have it. But at the same time, I feel like I would never be good just working for somebody because I feel like I always want to do something on my own. Have you ever considered a career for yourself? Or were you
Yeah, I
always
mean,
in?
of course, I had a career. Like I started my branch old. I was like 32 when I graduated from business school. So I had a career. I worked as a software developer, and then I was a management consultant for over a year. And then I also worked in a startup as like a product manager, and I did really well. And I knew there was a path for me to like just, go get a job at one of the large companies as a product manager. Because I had a technical background, I knew business. So yeah, I mean, I did consider it. I think when we started working together with my co-founders, we started the first year, and then the summer between first and second year, I didn't know, so I also applied for internships. So I had an offer from Apple, which would have been like, I always thought Apple would be such a cool place to work, and it was like a lot of money for like an intern, and I had like no money at the time because I was living off my loans. And the way Stanford works is like they expect you to get a job during the internship. So they like the way the financial aid works is like there isn't really support for the summer.
Was that
So
about
it
the
was
time when you were starting Kindred Prince?
yeah, that was basically
Ooh.
so it was like, what should I do? Right. Then my co-founder, Mike, he also had and he was like even worse financially than me. So it was a hard, but I think like I still remember I had a group of women from Stanford, and had this women's circle, and I went and like I sat in the circle and people asked me questions, and it helped me like decide that I really needed to take the path of entrepreneurship, because that's what like deeply I needed to try it.
Do you remember those questions that really made it click in your head?
I think it was just around like what brings me joy, where do I like light up, um, if I envision myself at the end of the summer, had I like done one or the other, which one would bring me more happiness? Um, so I am very happy with the decision, even though it was like really hard. I ended up doing an internship in Argentina and using some of the money from that to be able to pay for rent that summer. And then Mike ended up, because he couldn't pay for rent, he ended up like having a spreadsheet, and people signed up, and he slept on people's couches for the whole summer. And he just basically didn't have a house because he couldn't afford rent. So we all found ways to like, make it work, and it was hard.
What is fascinating to me, founders like you, when things are that tough and you have an opportunity, you have a magic pill. There you go, Apple. They're gonna pay money. You'll be able to pay off your loans, save up. Live in a house. But still, you're like, I'm gonna put most of my time into this startup because I believe it's gonna work. And then,
It wasn't because I believe it's going to work. I think you misunderstand. I didn't know if it was going to work. I actually thought it wasn't going to work. So the way I thought about it at the time was very much like, what would be the environment where I would be most true to my values, and where I would feel at the end of it that I've grown the most, right? Like the summer between first and second year in business school is like a very safe space. You're going back to business school, and like if I had gone to Apple, like I probably wouldn't, who knows where I would have gone. But I think I really value authenticity and self-expression and independence, and it felt like going and working on my own thing gave me way more of those. And then the other thing was my co-founders. I thought were exceptional people, and like I think I am who I am as a leader because I worked with them. And I knew that I didn't know the people at Apple, but I knew that my co-founders were some of the most like amazing people I've met. And working with them was going to make me a better person. And like working in this really hard thing, even though I would have probably learned a lot from Apple, I don't think it would have been the same as like trying to get a company off the ground. Um, and like it felt like I should take the bigger risk at a time in my life where I had the luxury to do that, right?
yeah. And when the company is struggling, is going through those murky waters, it really puts a lot of stress and tests your relationship with your partners, co-founders. Do you remember that part of the journey?
Um, yeah, I mean it did, but I don't think those were the things that really put pressure on us. I think yes, we had some of that, but I think usually when you have like this common experience that you do with your co-founders, and if you have like a strong foundation, it really does help you move forward. So I think having Stanford is very, very like you learn a lot. Like it does bring a set of values and core principles. So having gone through that together, I think really helped. And when things were rough, I think it was never about us. Like right, like in the early days, I think we realized that we were a good team, and we were a good team because we brought very different things to the table. And Alex, our CEO at the time, had worked with other teams that were just a lot more similar to him. And I think in our case, he could just see that we were different enough that we complemented him in certain ways. I think because of that, we were able to like stay together. And so by the time we started Branch, we had been working together for a year and a half, and we had gone through a bunch of different pivots. We started with Fitbit for dogs, and then we built an app, and then we built the printing SDK. So really Branch was our first idea together. So I think one of the reasons we did, we like didn't break or anything was because like we really built that foundation, and we took the touchy-feely course at Stanford, and we were doing like founder touchy-feely sessions, and this is something I'm replicating in some way at the Upside, right? Like we all worked a Branch together, and we just lived in this hacker house, which I think Branch was a good experience, but also we were not like, I was the manager, and it was just not, we didn't have the same experience. But at HF0, we lived in a hacker house for 2 months, and it put so much pressure on us, and it like forced us to like have tough conversations and give each other feedback. And so I think like one of the reasons I thought HF0 would be a good idea was because it was going to give us this shared hard experience that builds like like something you can like continue to build on when things are tough.
So it's before you're tested with hardships, it's hard to build that level of trust. Yeah, I generally found like me and my wife, we've gone through a very hard path at the start, and we have to times remind ourselves that we wouldn't change that for anything, because that built the foundation upon which now we're like, we didn't do all of that for nothing. We've become a strong team.
Yeah, totally.
And when you talk about the touchy feely part of how important do you think that is when picking the right team, the right co-founders for yourself, to allow for that touchy feely and not just be like, hey, business, you do this, I do this, let's go make billions.
Yeah, so touchy-feely, the class at Stanford called touchy-feely, it's actually a class called interpersonal dynamics, and it's not really, there's this concept of a T group where you sit in a group with people and then they give you a lot of feedback. So touchy-feely really is a class that teaches you how to communicate better and how to have tough conversations with people, how to give that feedback. So there is a version now for entrepreneurs called Leaders in Tech that I just did because it was so long since Stanford. And my co-founder, Alex here, different Alex, he also took it. We are extremely different. Like every test we've ever taken, we are polar opposites. And it's very important for us to communicate and give each other like feedback and find a way that we can like adapt, because our working styles are like so different. So I do think that's very important, right? Like there's two paths you can take. One path that some people take is you build a company with people like you. They're very similar, so there's not that many issues because you're just so similar. You like the same things, you think the same way, you're all like nerdy engineers, or you're all business people. Like, like that's the simple way. And then like what we did here at Upside, we are extremely different. And we knew, like, I remember when Alex and I were talking about starting a company, because, we've worked together for like 10 years now. He said like his biggest concern is that we will blow up just because our working styles are so different. But when we write a piece of content together or we work on products, like we are a very good team. Like I think very differently than him. So like I will come up with like the more like big picture thing, and then like, but he will like polish it in a way like I miss certain details. So like we But when you pick people that are so different, they clash. So if you don't have the tools to talk through things, you start resenting each other, you fight. Like the biggest reason companies fail is because co-founders fight.
Yeah.
So it's like if you want people who are different that can build a really good product together, you need to give them the tools. And maybe it's are touchy-feely, or I have friends who have similar issues and they have a coach, but you need a way to like work together your differences, because your differences are important in like building an amazing product, but they are the things that make it hard to work every day.
Like, how would you advise? Because I can imagine a lot of founders listening to this, and they're in a situation where most of the founders, there are 2 or 3 people in the company. And usually the situation arises when they start feeling that either they're not pulling their weight or somebody else is not pulling their weight. And instead of starting to feel resentful towards them, usually it's better to know how to have a conversation. And could you, like with your experience, give a bit of advice for those people on like what shall they do? What would be the right thing to do to help them navigate this?
Yeah, I mean, we went through this, right? Like, I think you have to like just talk to the person, right? And tell them how you feel and set expectations, right? Like I think first of all, there's 2 different things, right? Like when you build a company, not everyone can work the same level, right? Like I am a lot older than my co-founders, and I got super sick at branch. So I know that I need to take care of myself sometimes. And if I don't put my own oxygen mask, like I won't like, so, do well. So it's like a question of like, this is what I can give. And then everyone has to come in and be like, this is what each of us can give. Is this enough? How do we make it work? The other one is not everyone works the same way, right? So I remember my old co-founder, Alex, someone asked him about like me. And he said, Mada is not the type of person that like will sit at the desk and work 20 hours. But the way she brings value is just different. She'll like go and meet people and find a way to like get that influence into the company and get thoughts, and you might not like see her at her desk the most. And I mean, I do actually spend a lot of time at my desk these days, but the whole point is the value is different. Like, right, like Alex, my co-founder, he needs to go for a walk, and he goes for a walk for an hour, and then he comes up with a really great idea. And someone might be like, but why is he going for a walk? Like, he's like, but this is just what he needs to like work. I don't need to go for a walk. I need to go home earlier and like sleep more because I wake up in the morning. So everyone needs to understand, but then you have to have a very honest conversation. Like if you're feeling resentful, you have to tell that to the other person, and then the other person needs to actually accept and say, hey, you're right. I've been feeling, if someone's resentful that someone else is not putting their weight, the other person probably can feel it, and they know they're not putting their weight, and there's usually a reason they're not putting their weight. So you have to have that honest conversation, because usually when you start understanding the reason the other person is not putting their weight, you can like discuss, come up with plans, and find a way. I think, someone said, one of my investors said this the other day, it's better to feel guilty than to feel resentful. So it's better to feel guilty that you brought this up and you made someone feel bad, or than to feel resentful, because guilt can be transformed to something else. Resentful over time builds, and it will like, kill your company.
Can you think of like you're talking about the oxygen mask? I was thinking, okay, there are a lot of times where people feel burnt out, especially when building companies, because it's not a walk in the park. Like things break all the time, and you never find yourself doing the thing that's working the best. You're always out there in the gutters trying to fix and try to make something work that isn't working correctly. Do you remember how you dealt with the burnout? What was your oxygen mask? How has it evolved over time? How did you maybe discover yourself, new rituals, or find ways to recharge the batteries?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 different ways to look at burnout. I think the actual definition of burnout is like someone not feeling excitement about their work and feeling and really I think the biggest source of burnout is not exhaustion. So I think there's exhaustion and like you're breaking apart, and then there's burnout, right? Like when I was at HF0, I wasn't burnt out because I felt so much energy, but like there were days where like I would just like feel this exhaustion and I got sick. And so like let's break it down. I think the oxygen mask and exhaustion that can lead to like feeling sick is like different. Like I think for that, the things I try to do is like I really prioritize sleep. I read this book about sleep, and like, sleep is
Professional
just like
sleepers.
I am like a professional sleeper. I just get super angry at my boyfriend when like he doesn't, like where we're going to bed too late. And then like I just try to take days off and go to the sauna and working out. But there are ways to can like combat exhaustion that like and taking care of yourself. Like my happy place is going to Equinox on Saturday mornings and meeting my trainer, and then swimming, and then getting a massage, and then doing sauna, and like I'm there for like 4 hours, and that's like my recharge time, right? So the burnout idea is a very different thing. I think it's like when you've been a founder and you've been trying and trying and you feel like there's no progress, that really leads to burnout. I think it's like kind of the tie to my mission, right? Like when people feel they're working on things that they do not see the impact, you start losing the sense of purpose. And that's really what people consider to be burnout. So you can feel burnout even though you're not working that hard. And you can work very hard and feel tired but not burnt out because you still feel you have the energy to work on your company. So the way I like combat burnout is when things are not like doing great, I find something small to do that will feel like I had a win, right? Like I will write a blog post, or I will like put a video or a LinkedIn thing out, then people like it, and like, or I will like go and right now like I will go and like do a test for our customers, and I'll like pull like something and put it in the thing for them, and they'll be like, oh, I love this. Like anything small that feels like, oh my God, I'm making progress. People are excited. And obviously like it's hard, but there are things that like, no matter where you are in a company, there are things you can do, like talk, like give feedback to someone and feel like someone on your team is growing because of it. Do something that will give you positive feedback back, so you feel you're like you still matter, your work still matters. And I think that making sure you have that every day, every week, can help you like alleviate not feeling this like hopeless burnout when like especially when you're struggling to find product market fit, or your revenue is not growing.
Yeah.
That's my I know. I think a lot about this because I think I was very burned out in my last startup. And I think part of it was because it was really hard to like see the value of my work. And that's why I'm starting Upside. Like it's such a deeply personal issue that I felt. And I don't want anyone else to feel.
And I think the best way when you can feel the founder's soul in the company, in the mission, and it's so clear when you communicate it, that it has that personal touch. And it's interesting that from Kindred Prince, you're like, okay, we really struggle with getting the mobile app downloads. You're like, I'll help fix that for all other founders. Now after Branch, you're like, okay, I was leading marketing for this long. I was like, I know they're feeling burnt out. I'll help fix that for you. You're taking your experience and then solving that issue for people in your position.
Isn't that the best companies, right? Like,
yeah.
There are companies that are being built because, there's just something cool. But I think when a founder really felt the problem and they're solving that, the type of soul that that company has is just very different, right? So, like Slack was, there's just a lot of companies that started on something else. People struggle with something. I think that's like one of the best recipes for success. It's not the only one. I think there are, I think it just depends who you are as a person. There are type of people who are just so excited about the new idea that even if for them what matters is the innovation of the market, and we see so much of that with AI. And I think that takes a different type of personality. For someone like me, I am way too like, I need that purpose and something that I felt myself. It's just how my brain works, and it's just different, right?
Mm-hmm. And has your internal motivation, the question of why, changed since you were studying Kindred Prince? Because I believe at that
Yeah,
point
of
it's like,
course.
we need money to pay the rent. We have loans. Let's make, and this seems interesting. Let's change the world and make some money.
I mean,
What,
I didn't care about the money at all at
ever?
Kindred. I never thought we was gonna, like, I actually thought, I'm ashamed to admit that, but I didn't think we were gonna make it. Like, I didn't have enough self-confidence. I believed in my co-founders, and I don't think I was ready to be a CEO founder at the time, and I'm happy I wasn't. Um, but I didn't do it because of that. I did it because I wanted to work on something cool, because I wanted a way to have self-expression. I wanted to build something, and I didn't actually think we were going to make any money. I thought we were, I mean, and maybe we're going to make something, but it was not ever about the money. I think it was for my co-founders. I think you have to ask them. But for me, it wasn't that. So I think for me, it was like, how it's okay to sacrifice, because this experience of building a company is the coolest thing I could do, and I could grow the most. And then I think the other thing that was a driver for me then was, I was at this conference the other day, and I was talking to Jeff Weiner. We ended up sitting at the table, and he's just such a cool guy. And we ended up talking about this actually, like, what drives most founders is this, like, there are some who do it just for the mission, but many of them have something hollow inside of them that they try to feel and prove themselves. And for me, in the first company, 100%, I wanted to prove that I could build something. I had this, like, something inside me that said that I needed to prove myself. A lot more than, like, my old CEO. He didn't have that, and he was more mission driven, and I really admired that, but I didn't have that. And it took me a long time to work on it and, like, figure out a place where I didn't feel I need to prove myself anymore, and I needed to, and that was like, and the money was part of it, right? Like, making money through Branch made me feel like I didn't need to start another company. I could have been just fine living off what I made, and I could have just been a consultant or go and chill in Bali. Like, there were just a lot of paths.
And how
So
will
when I
you?
started Upside, the motivation was very different. I felt I had already made it to some extent, and I'm the only reason I wanted to start Upside was because I wanted it. Like, someone made ask this question: if you're going to die in 3 years, what would you do with your life now? And I wouldn't do anything else different. Like, I love my co-founders are like my favorite people. I loved working with them. I'm working on something that I really like. I'm having fun. It's hard sometimes, but like, we're building with AI, and it's like the world is changing and we're part of it. And I get to solve a problem that I felt myself. And so I just don't think there's anything else I would rather do, right? Because I didn't have to. So I think when you start a company from a different place, I think you just build differently.
So you're starting from love rather than having to prove something to someone. And did
Yeah,
you?
but like, but the drive I felt when I was trying to prove myself, people kill themselves for that. And there's just so many founders. And like, Jeff and I were like, if that disappeared, would we have any? Because like, that's what drives the world. And there are people who get to where I am today, but like, this drive, the mission drive, is not as intense as the drive to put yourself. Like, I would not kill myself anymore. And if we had a world without people trying to prove themselves and prove something to someone, would we have the type of, like, evolution? Maybe not, but maybe we don't need it, because AI is making, we maybe would have to work less. And I have my favorite author, sci-fi author, is Ian Banks, and like, the way he envisions the culture is like what I hope our world will end up. where, humans and what he calls minds, but they're this AI intelligence, like live, but like the AI minds are actually like taking care of society, and humans can just like explore their interests. And so I'm like, maybe that's I really hope the way the world will evolve is how Yen and Bang sees it, not how most other sci-fi writers see it, which is a lot darker.
Dystopian. Because I can relate to that a lot. Because I was also looking at my own motivation levels, and I would always be driven to prove myself to my father. What I've realized, because I would never get kind of unconditional love. It was always a condition that you have to perform, you have to be the best, you have to prove it to be loved in the family. And I remember I was sitting in the therapy, and the therapist was just waiting, and I would tell the story, but then I would tell her, but I don't want to untangle that knot, because I don't know what I would do without
Yeah,
this level of motivation and drive that's still pushing
yeah,
me
yeah.
to work harder. Because once you lose that, you enter a void where you have to figure out.
There is something after the void, right? Like I do think once I started working on that and untangling it, I did lose motivation for a while, and it took me some time. And I think now the motivation comes from purpose, but it's not like something that happens overnight. So it took me years to like work through that.
What were
Um,
the main stepping stones that helped you make the transition?
but therapy and plant medicine, um, and guided,
Hmm.
just working on my ego. A lot of like, I did a very intense 360 review once with 15 people, and it was the hardest thing. And being like, oh my God, when you get so much feedback and you have to accept it, and like just working on your ego and like removing yourself a sense of self-importance and accepting yourself the way you are. I mean, it was just really hard. So I think first step, probably started 6 7 years ago, was just working on that. And then as I started getting better and better, and I was starting to lose motivation, so then I had to find my purpose, which kind of happened through Upside.
Because at times I'm also thinking to try the 360, to try the guided plant meditation, but it just seems so scary to give up control, because I don't know what kind of person I'm going to meet at the other end.
Well, that's the
Was it
whole
ever?
point, right? You meet yourself, the true version of yourself. Like if you read How to Change Your Mind, and um, a lot of the value of doing a journey is um, killing the ego and seeing who are you without the ego. And for me, that was a very powerful. It was just a very powerful experience that like just like changed the course of my life. I think in a very positive direction.
Do you remember the moment that you've killed your ego?
The
Like,
first time, like yeah,
yeah.
it was in a journey. Yeah, I do remember, and I think what I worked for after is how do I get there day to day. And I think one of the ways I was able to get to the same place is outside of therapy was meditation. And I think part of me is like, I do need to meditate more, but I've gone to some meditation retreats. And those, like, like if you think of a plant medicine journey, you take the elevator to that place and
Yeah.
then you drop back down to who you are. Versus when you get there to meditation, you're taking the stairs and building the muscles. And by the time you're at the top, you know how you got there, and you're like you made the effort, and then it's way more sustainable.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people get there. I don't think you need a plant medicine journey, but that's just a way for me. I don't know if I would have like put the effort into meditation if I didn't know how it looked like to be on the top. So I think the stairs that gave me the power to then, and I went to like Joe Dispenza retreats, and now I meditate a lot more. But it's not that you can't get there without it. I think there are ways you can get there without it. It just takes a lot longer, and you need to be a lot more. And for some people, kind of seeing how that looks like can be a motivator to do the work every day.
Because I noticed
The
that,
wrong one is if you get
yeah,
there, and I've seen people do that. If you get there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to start microdosing. That is not the way to do it. I think that's extremely unhealthy from my perspective.
what I've noticed is people when they sell the company, because everybody's dreaming about their big exit. And in reality, when people get to that exit, they seem to all lose that sense of purpose. And this is where I see a lot of people going to the Joe Dispenza. I think it's filled with people who've just sold their companies and are trying to find themselves without.
I mean, I went like at the end of branch, like I went for the first time, and I was trying to find my purpose, and it did help.
And how
Yeah,
does that
and
feel
it
like?
doesn't have to be. It can be a silent meditation. Everyone, Joe Dispenza has good and bad. It's cool, but it is a bit culty, and but there are really cool parts about it. And I think he has studied. He's a very smart dude, and he's done a lot of studying on how to get someone who maybe like I have ADHD, and like how can you get someone like that into meditative state? And he has taken everything from like I mean not stolen, but he's taken everything from all the different other places and made it extremely accessible. And he like the way you feel in his meditations, because he's like it's very hypnotic because he uses triggers. So he's just very good at like getting someone like me who had no experience to experience to get me into meditation. And I had like incredible experiences through that. There are parts of it that are like not, but I think if you go in with an open mind and also open eyes, and you understand that you don't have to like take everything that he says for granted, you can accept the fact that he's just very good at what he does. And then like for me, I think it is a very good like starter if you're trying to like meditate.
And
And
can we
yeah.
talk more about meditation? Because general knowledge meditation, you sit there in silence for 20 minutes, you have thoughts, you try not to interact with them. That's it. Do you have any other ways? What makes a good productive, I want to say productive meditation, but what makes for a good effective meditation?
Yeah, so like my favorite meditations, Joe Dispenza has different types, but the one that really helped for me is I mean I've tried Headspace and others, and it's just very hard for me to not have thoughts. So the Joe Dispenza one, I think what he does well is like prepare you for that. So you have like at the beginning you just open your heart and you just think about opening your heart, and then he does this like breath work. Um, and the breath works that he does is trying to like increase your pineal gland. So it's a very like active breath work, and it really does like help you start like because you're breathing and counting, you're starting to not think about things. So breath work, I think, is a very good prelude to meditation. And then you go into meditation, and I think he does a good job. But because the way of the music and his voice, he's also using cues to put you into a trance state. So the more you are closer to a trance state, you're more likely to not think about things. And I think during his stuff, I usually just imagine being nothing and imagine the void. So if I just like keep imagining the void, I start like becoming one with the void. But sometimes I will have like, like almost like visions and things. And the other thing that happens once I get to that state, I usually start doing my own parts work where they're like different parts of me. Like I will notice parts of me trying to come in, and I feel like I am the higher self talking to those parts, which I can never do outside of therapy and outside of that deep, and that usually happens an hour in. And like a part is very stressed, and I'm like, why are you stressed? It's okay. And like we have these conversations. And then I go back to like being nothing, but then I notice like a different part being like, we should do this. Let's leave. It's cold. And I'm like, it's okay. So it's like, there's just like really cool parts of like when you do like his meditations are like 2 to 4 hours. So you don't like think about nothing for the whole time. But like I do get to a point where there are 20 minutes where I am in meditation, and then like I notice, or I have like, which sometimes I imagine myself outside my body, and then I see what happens. Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but this somehow has worked for me. I do feel out of body experiences, and I feel this intense joy, and it's very, very weird. I would have never like thought that I would like be into this, but somehow.
And if you take Mada before starting branch and Mada we see now, what are the main core differences? And what would you tell to the younger self if you could talk to her?
I mean, I just think I have much higher self-esteem. I think I'm a lot more self-aware. I think I'm like willing to take feedback, like I don't, when someone says, hey, this thing sucked, or, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's talk about it. Like, I'm no longer, um, defensive, and I think my ego is a lot lower. I think I'm just a lot better at what I do, and I work a lot harder. I find a lot more joy in my work. I mean, I still think I'm struggling to find balance. I don't think I've like solved that. I did this thing with my friends where we sat in a circle and we had to like each say, what does our heart truly desire? And I think this was during living in the hacker house, and I was very on, and I remember saying, and I felt this so deeply, like what my heart truly desires, finding a way to find balance. Because like I know how to like be cool now. Like I can just like chill for a week, and I know how to be super on and work like crazy and make, I just don't know how to be in between. Like it's hard to like find a way to relax every day, but also work really hard. And like I don't know how to like, I know how to be on and I know how to be off now, but like how, like, and maybe that's the answer, right? Like maybe at Upside we're trying this thing where for a few weeks a month we're super on, we work weekends, we're here until 11, and then for a week or two we just do normal, like 9 to 6 hours. So it's like maybe that is the answer. Maybe sometimes I am on and sometimes I mean not fully off, but so still working on that.
And for that transformation, if there are founders listening to this and like, I think I might be ready for that transformation, how should they plan for it? Because they don't want their company to break down because they just went away on their retreats and trying to find themselves. How many years do you think it generally takes, and how can people prepare themselves for this journey?
I mean, I just don't think that it's possible to have that transformation until you're ready for it. Like, could I have had that transformation earlier, a branch? Probably not. Um, I think it's exactly what you said. Joe Dispenza retreats or people doing plant medicine or whatever, it's all people who have reached some sort of rock bottom and need to find a different way to survive. And I think when you hit that point, you will find a way. Like most people find a way. And for some people, the rock bottom is different than others. But I think it's just, I don't think like someone starting their first company 6 months in being like, I'm stressed, I'm gonna like start going to join. Like I just don't think that that's how it works. I think everyone needs to find their own journey. For me it took like probably 5 to 6 years, 6 years, but for someone it might take 6 months. Like I just don't think that there's and people will know and they will go. I think everyone finds a way to, I mean, obviously there's some people who don't go on any journey and like they really, but most people, most founders find a way. There's a reason you see so many founders go to Burning Man or whatever. It's like everyone has reached some sort of rock bottom and needs to do it differently. And some don't need it. Like there are people like my old co-founder who's just he grew up so healthy. Like he just already started from a place of like, building something for purpose.
Yeah. So it's don't try to find it; it will find you when you're ready.
I think that's, yeah, maybe. Or you'll go look for it when you need it.
And what are you most excited about for the next 10 years?
I mean, I'm excited to build a company in a different way. One of my investors was my professor at Stanford. We were at this summit yesterday, and she said it's just so cool to see Mada having such a different journey, because even though she didn't invest in my last company, we went for walks and she saw how miserable I was. And I think it's just really cool to hear her acknowledge in front of a group that this is different, and I'm very excited for it. And I'm excited to build a family with my partner, and I think and then I'm really, like, I'm probably on the more positive side of what AI can mean. And positive or negative, I just think we're going to see, we're like this analogy before, but we're in a boat and we are heading towards a waterfall. and we have passed the point of no return. There's nothing we can do to stop it. The snowball is happening, and I'm just like excited that I'm gonna live through how humanity will change. For the good or the bad, it's still gonna be like I just think it's gonna be something incredible and a change that we've never seen. I hope it's good, but I'm still excited to see something so interesting happen over the next 10 years. And I don't know how society will shape, but I just know it's going to be very different.
And I'm loving that you're feeling the gratitude towards being able to be a part of this journey, even though it's uncertain, even though it's crazy and might be hard, dystopian, but we're still like in all of the parts of humanity that we could have existed. We are in this part that is near that waterfall with not knowing what is going to happen.
And I don't think that was ever a case. I think everything in the past was a lot more predictable. And I still think there were very cool parts of history. Anyway, I hope it's not bad. I hope I don't like listen to this years from now and I'm like, what was I thinking? Oh my God.
Kill it now.
I mean, we can't. It's too late.
Well, I think we can call it a pod. I want to thank you so much for giving your time, giving your energy, and being so open and vulnerable. I think a lot of people would really, really benefit from this conversation. And I certainly have. And I can feel the energy inside me just from talking to you change in a different vibration.
Oh,
So
thank you,
thank you
Shamil.
so
I really
much.
appreciate it.
I really look forward to seeing your next 10 years of building and living from the point of flourishing and the drive that you actually found
Well,
within.
I hope so. Let's see what happens in the actual world.
I'm sure it's going to be a great, great journey.